I want to begin with something that troubled me for many years. Not a complicated equation, not a theorem, just a simple question that anyone could ask, the kind of question a child might ask on a clear night, looking up at a star and wondering how old is that light. You see, when you look at a star, you are not looking at something that exists right now in this very moment. You are looking at the past. The light you received tonight from the star Polaris left that star over 400 years ago. It traveled through the emptiness of space, through the cold dark between worlds, and finally arrived at your eye this evening. 400 years of traveling. That seems like a very long time. But here is the strange part. Here is the thing that, once you understand it properly, never quite lets you go back to thinking about light the way you did before. The light itself, that photon that made the journey of 400 years by our reckoning, it experienced none of it. Not a second, not an instant. For the photon there was no journey at all. The moment it was emitted from the surface of that distant star and the moment it struck your retina were, from the photon's point of view, the very same moment. Now, I want you to sit with that for a moment, because it sounds like the kind of thing a mystic might say, and I assure you it is not. It is mathematics. It is one of the cleanest, most inescapable conclusions that follows from what Einstein gave us in 1905 in that remarkable paper on special relativity. The theory tells us, with extraordinary precision confirmed by a century of experiments, that time is not a universal, absolute river flowing at the same rate for all things everywhere. Time is, as Einstein was the first to make precise, a local phenomenon. It depends on how fast you are moving, and light moves at the maximum possible speed the universe permits. Let me explain what I mean, and I want to explain it carefully, because there is a version of this idea that is carelessly stated and a version that is correct, and they lead to very different places philosophically. When you move through space at high speed relative to some observer who is standing still, that observer will measure your clock as running slowly. This is not a trick of perception. It is not that your clock appears to run slowly while secretly running normally. The clock genuinely runs slowly in a physical, measurable sense. This is called time dilation, and it has been verified with atomic clocks on airplanes, with particles moving through accelerators, and with satellites whose signals must be corrected for exactly this effect every single day to make your GPS navigation work correctly. This is not speculative physics, this is engineering. Now, as you move faster, your clock runs more and more slowly as measured by the stationary observer. If you could move at 90% of the speed of light, your clock would run at a fraction of its normal rate. At 99%, even more slowly still. At 99.99%, your clock would be crawling. And if you could reach the speed of light itself, which I am about to tell you is the moment things become profoundly strange, your clock would stop entirely. No time would pass for you at all. But here I must be careful, and I must be honest with you about where the physics becomes subtle. We cannot actually set up a reference frame for something moving at exactly the speed of light. Einstein's equations don't break down in some ugly, messy way. They simply don't apply in the usual form at that exact speed. There is no valid reference frame for light. Light does not have a perspective in the way you and I have perspectives. If you ask, what does the world look like from light's point of view, you are asking a question that has no well-formed answer within special relativity. The framework simply does not extend to that limit. And yet we can take the limit mathematically, and that limit tells us something remarkable. As the velocity approaches c, the speed of light, proper time approaches zero. The space-time interval along a photon's path, what physicists call the Null geodesic, is precisely zero. Space and time cancel each other out perfectly. The distance traveled through space, enormous as it may be by our measure, is exactly balanced by the time it takes, in such a way that the total four-dimensional distance, the space-time interval, is nothing at all. This is what physicists mean when they say that light travels along a null geodesic. It is a path of zero length in space-time, not zero in space, not zero in time, zero in the four-dimensional fabric that Einstein taught us to take seriously. A photon emitted from a star 400 light-years away and a photon received by your eye right here, right now, are separated in space by 400 light-years and separated in time by 400 years, and yet the space-time distance between those two events is exactly zero. There is a beautiful phrase I like to use. Light, in a sense, is trapped at the boundary between space and time. It is traveling at the single speed that allows space and time to perfectly annihilate each other in the accounting. It is neither fully in time like you and I are, nor fully frozen like something at absolute rest. It lives at the exact edge where the two dimensions of space-time balance and cancel, and at that edge ordinary notions of time simply do not apply. Now I want to connect this to something deeper, because we have been talking about what light does not experience. But let us think about what this means for freedom. The word I have chosen deliberately because it illuminates something about the nature of constraint in the universe. You and I are massive creatures. We have rest mass. That means we are permanently embedded in time in a way that light is not. We cannot stand still in time. We cannot stop our clocks from ticking. Every moment, every second, we are being carried forward through time at the rate of 1 second per second, and there is absolutely nothing we can do about it. We can slow that rate very slightly by moving fast, but we cannot stop it. We cannot reverse it. We are, in this deep sense, prisoners of time. We move through it, we age because of it, and we are fundamentally constrained by it. The photon is apparently liberated from this. It does not age. It does not experience the passage of moments. It does not move through time at all. If the universe expanded by billions of light years while a photon traveled, the photon would know nothing of it. In this sense, one might imagine that light is the freest thing in the universe, unshackled from time, traveling instantaneously from its own perspective across any distance, connecting the most remote corners of the cosmos in a single null interval. But now I want to argue the opposite, and I want to argue it carefully, because I think the opposite is in fact the truth. Consider what it means to be trapped. You are trapped when you have no freedom of choice, when there is only one path available to you, and you must take it, and there is no alternative. By that definition, light is perhaps the most profoundly trapped thing in the universe. You and I can be stationary. We can sit in a chair and move through time without moving through space at all, or we can move through space at any speed we choose, up to but not reaching the speed of light. We have enormous freedom in how we distribute our motion between the space dimensions and the time dimension. A fast-moving particle sees its time slow and its space contract, but it retains choice. It can speed up, slow down, turn around, accelerate in any direction. Light cannot do any of these things. A photon, once created, must travel at exactly c, not approximately c, not close to c, exactly c. In every reference frame to every observer, light moves at the same speed. This is the foundational postulate of special relativity, and it has been confirmed to extraordinary precision. Light has no freedom of speed. It cannot slow down. It cannot speed up. It cannot stop. It cannot reflect on its situation and choose a different path. Every photon must always be moving at the maximum speed the universe allows, and for that very reason it is trapped in a null interval with no proper time. The imprisonment of light in time is not an accident. It is a direct consequence of its total lack of freedom in speed. Because it must always move at c, space and time must always cancel perfectly along its path. Because space and time always cancel perfectly, it never ages. The timelessness of light is not freedom. It is the signature of complete constraint. It is what you look like when you have absolutely no choice about how fast you travel. We might even put it this way: the price of moving at the maximum speed is that you are robbed of all experience of the journey. You get everywhere instantly, in a sense, but you experience nothing. All the billions of years that the light from the cosmic microwave background has been traveling since shortly after the Big Bang, the photons themselves have experienced none of that. They were emitted and absorbed, and for them nothing happened in between. The universe aged 14 billion years, and the photon did not notice. I find this philosophically fascinating, and I want to push it a little further. We tend to think of freedom as the ability to move fast, to cover great distances, to be unbound. Light seems to embody this. It goes everywhere and goes there at the maximum possible speed. And yet, in the most meaningful physical sense, light is more constrained than anything else in the universe. Its speed is fixed, its experience is null, it is the prisoner of its own perfection. There is a lesson here that applies more broadly. The very thing that makes a photon appear free, its ability to cross the universe in no time at all, is the direct result of the constraint that binds it. It experiences no time because it must move at c. It travels the cosmos instantly because it has no choice about how to move. What looks like ultimate freedom is, when examined carefully, the exact opposite. Now let me say something about how this connects to the structure of space-time itself, because I think it illuminates something about why the universe is the way it is. Einstein taught us that space-time has a geometry. It is not empty, featureless nothing. It has structure, curvature, and most fundamentally it has a metric, a way of measuring distances. That metric in special relativity treats space and time on a similar footing, but with a crucial difference. When you compute the distance between two events in space-time, you add the square of the spatial separation, but you subtract the square of the time separation, or, depending on your convention, the other way round. The point is the minus sign. Time enters with the opposite sign to space. This minus sign is responsible for everything we have been talking about. Because of it, there is a family of paths through space-time for which the total interval is exactly zero, paths where the spatial separation and temporal separation are equal in magnitude and cancel in the space-time accounting. These are the null paths, and massless particles, photons, are constrained by the laws of physics to move along exactly these paths. There is no choice in the matter. Maxwell's equations, which describe electromagnetism, are built in such a way that their solutions, light waves, automatically propagate at c. The speed of light is not a number that was inserted by hand. It emerges from the equations, and those equations demand that light move along null geodesics. So the imprisonment of light in time is at the deepest level a consequence of the structure of space-time itself and of the equations that govern electromagnetic fields. The photon does not choose to travel at c. It is compelled by the laws of electromagnetism and by the geometry of the universe. And because it travels at c, it is trapped in timelessness. I think this is one of the most elegant examples of what I might call the hidden constraint. Things that appear to be free are often the most profoundly bound, and the signature of that binding is often something that looks from the outside like a superpower. Let me say something about what this means for us, for human beings, and our understanding of our own situation, because I do not think physics should be purely abstract. The greatest physics always teaches us something about our condition. We are, in the terminology I used earlier, massive creatures. We live inside time, we age, we remember the past and anticipate the future. We feel the weight of history and the anxiety of mortality. Time is not neutral for us. It is the medium in which we live and the thing that ultimately consumes us. Light has none of that. But as I have argued, the apparent timelessness of light is not freedom. It is a form of perfect imprisonment. The photon has no past and no future because it has no experience at all. There is no inside of a photon's journey. There is only emission and absorption with nothing in between. We, by contrast, have everything in between. We are slow. We are constrained to speeds far below c. We age and we die. But in exchange for this, we get something that light will never have. We get the interior of the journey. We get experience. We get the accumulation of time with all its richness and complexity and suffering and joy. The very thing that makes us seem less free than a photon, our slowness, our mass, our embeddedness in time, is what makes us capable of experiencing anything at all. I have sometimes thought that this is one of the deepest gifts of physics to philosophy. The universe, as far as we understand it, permits only two fundamental modes of existence in relation to time. You can be massive and be embedded in time, experiencing its flow but unable to escape it. Or you can be massless and be freed from time's flow, but also stripped of all experience, compressed into a null point of zero, proper time. There is nothing in between. The equations do not permit it. You cannot have a little bit of experience and a little bit of timelessness. You are one or the other. And what this means is that the capacity for experience, for consciousness, for the sense of being somewhere and somewhen, is inseparable from the imprisonment in time that we so often resent. You cannot have an inner life and also be free of time. The inner life is precisely what it feels like to be inside time, to be carried forward through it, to accumulate moments. Now, I want to return at the end to the question I began with. How old is the light from that star? By our reckoning, the light is 400 years old. It left its source 4 centuries ago and has been traveling ever since. By the photon's reckoning, or rather in the limit we can calculate for what would be the photon's proper time, it is 0 seconds old. It has not aged at all. Both of these statements are true. They are not in contradiction. They are simply descriptions of the same physical reality from two different perspectives, and relativity assures us that both perspectives are valid. But I find it remarkable that these two descriptions can coexist, that the same physical process, a photon crossing 400 light-years of space, can be simultaneously a journey of 400 years and a journey of no time whatsoever. Not approximately no time, exactly, mathematically, precisely no time. What this tells us is that time is not a thing. It is not a substance that exists independently of observers and clocks and particles. Time is a relationship. It is what you measure between events when you are moving through space-time in a particular way. And different ways of moving through space-time give you different measures of time. The photon's way of moving, the only way available to it, the null geodesic, gives a time of 0. Our way of moving, slow and massive and embedded, gives us the time we experience. And the universe, it seems, has arranged things so that there is a maximum speed, and that maximum speed is precisely the speed at which time stands still. There is a speed limit built into the geometry of the cosmos, and at exactly that speed limit time ceases to flow. Is this a coincidence? I do not think so. I think it is a deep structural feature of the way space-time is put together. The speed of light is not an accident. It is the speed at which spatial and temporal separations balance in the four-dimensional accounting, and the geometry of Minkowski spacetime, with its crucial minus sign, is designed, if I may use that word without implying a designer, in exactly the way that makes this possible. So when we ask why light is trapped in time, we are really asking why the universe has the geometry it has. And when we ask why the secret will break freedom, we discover that the apparent freedom of light, its ability to cross the cosmos in an instant from its own perspective, is revealed, on examination, to be the most complete form of constraint the universe knows. Light cannot slow down, light cannot speed up, light cannot turn around and think about what it has seen. Light has no experience, no duration, no history. It is the speed of light that defines the boundary between existence inside time and existence outside time, and to be outside time, as we have seen, is not freedom. It is the absence of everything that makes freedom meaningful. We, the slow and massive and mortal, are the ones who get to experience the universe. And that, I think, is worth thinking about for a very long time. Thank you.